Story 1. I always listen to these stories on YouTube, and I never thought I would have a story to post here. But here I am. For context, I work in a hospital that specializes in elective surgeries. Therefore, a vast majority of the patients that come into my office are people willing to pay thousands of dollars out of pocket to fix physical, but not life-threatening, issues. My boss is considered the best in his field throughout the entire world, and it is particularly difficult to schedule an appointment with him unless it is months in advance. I received a phone call from this woman. Let's call her Karen, and the conversation is as followed. The doctor's office. How can I help you? I need an appointment so I can schedule surgery, and I was told by the doctor through email to call to be scheduled next week. I was confused. I'm sorry, I am not too certain what you are referring to. The doctor is not going to be in the office next week, and their next availability for consultations are not until May. What are you talking about? They told me in the email to call to schedule it, and I am a sitting judge, so I need an appointment next week. Okay, ma'am. Give me one moment while I look into this. I put her on hold and walked into my supervisor's office and asked if my boss had sent word about a last-minute patient being added on that I was just unaware about. They say no, but to ask if the patient can forward the email so we can confirm as the boss was in the OR. This is a common practice in the office I work in, as there are instances where the boss talks to a patient but forgets to inform the staff. If we are overbooked for a day, my supervisor has to open a specific time frame in order to schedule any last-minute patients. I go back and take her off hold. I'm sorry, ma'am, but are you able to forward the email to me? It does not seem there is any record of you coming to our office for an earlier appointment. I just need to confirm before I schedule. For some reason, this statement activates some secret emotional bomb in the back of this woman's brain, and she immediately becomes more hostile. She then starts screaming, "No, I will not. I am a sitting judge, and you asking me to do this is extremely rude and unprofessional. I spoke to the doctor through email. Are you actually doubting me right now?" Yes. I cannot believe this. I need to have surgery on X date, and you will give it to me. Me, 1000% over this woman at this point. Okay, ma'am. I will ask my boss to send me the email when he is out of the OR. So I unfortunately have to get back to you on your appointment date. Thank you. And just as a word of advice, watch your tone the next time you speak to me. Okay? A few hours later, my boss comes back into the OR and tells me they have received an email from Karen stating that I was rude and unprofessional to her, and that I was refusing services to her because I wanted to invade her privacy, and she said no. Luckily, the whole time I was on the phone with this patient, my supervisor was in my office listening to the entire call on speakerphone. Otherwise, no one would have been able to confirm that I was not being unreasonable and rude to this patient. My boss goes on to explain that they never promised an earlier appointment to her in the first place, but to check with the office to be put on the waitlist for an earlier date. Now, knowing that Karen is nothing but a miserable liar that throws tantrums when no one believes her, I asked my boss if it was really worth it keeping her as a patient, to which they said no. While I was happy with this decision because I don't have to deal with Karen anymore, I felt bad for any other physician that had to deal with this lady in the future. What I didn't know at this point was that my supervisor called patient advocacy, essentially a human resources specialist that handles awful patients, and they agreed that her behavior warranted her not to be accepted as a patient by any other physician within the hospital. So now my boss, supervisor, and I have to call her tomorrow to inform the hospital's decision to discharge her. Honestly, karma is not something you should screw with. Story 2. I just found out about this sub and thought I'd share a little story with you that happened to me in 2013. At the time, my then girlfriend, now wife, was about to move into my apartment. I was between two jobs and figured I could do some touch-ups, install a lamp she wanted to hang in the living room, and do other small repairs and replacements that were due anyway. I get home from the local hardware store, park my car, black VW Passat, no company logo or anything else on the car, and begin to unload the stuff I bought. 2 parking spaces away. We have numbered parking. I'm on 25. She's on 27. I noticed a lady unloading moving boxes from her car, stopping in the middle of what she was doing and glaring at me in anticipation. No idea what she wants, but I figured I'll be nice to a new neighbor and said hello with a smile while I moved my stuff to the elevator. I unlock my apartment and get to work. About 20 minutes later, someone rings at my door and the lady, let's refer to her as Headcase, from the parking lot stands in the hallway with a look on her face like she just gargled lemon juice. Me, hello. Headcase, well, first of all, you have to move your car. I need the space to move in. We have several cars coming, and you can't park there even during working hours. It was about 2 p.m. Secondly, you can do this later and install my internet access now. I don't have time to wait the entire day, and this can clearly be done later. Completely dumbfounded by the situation, I just stood there for like 10 seconds trying to process what has just been said. Me, you are probably confusing me with someone. I have no idea what. The Headcase interrupted me. Young man, I was 33 at the time, but I'll take the compliment. Don't take me for an idiot. You'll get down to my apartment right now and set up the internet. The kids are cranky enough from the move, and you can return and do whatever it is you're doing up here later. Still trying to process what is going on. Ma'am, I'm pretty certain there's a mistake here. Young man, you do what I say right away, or I'll make sure you'll regret this. I'm going to inform your boss what an unwilling and unfriendly employee you are. I'll have you fired if you do not install my internet access right away. Ma'am, listen to me. I'm sure you're mistaking me for someone else. I can call the building management and maybe they can figure it out for you. Do you want me to call them? I have their number saved on my phone. You call them right away. This is unacceptable. I pull up the number for our building management, call it and hand her my phone. After a few rings. Yes, this is Miss Headcase. This is absolutely unacceptable. This young man who's supposed to install our internet access refuses to do his job and instead is loitering around in this empty apartment. This is unacceptable. I demand that his company is informed. I'm not going to pay a single cent for a service like this. Talking on the phone. Headcase, apartment number Roman 20. Roman 20 is my apartment number. More talking on the phone. What's your name, young man? I give her my name. Even more talking on the phone. The Headcase's head turns redder than the stop sign at a traffic light. She mumbles something incoherent, hangs up the phone and stomps away without any further words or eye contact. Still absolutely overwhelmed with what just happened, my phone rings. Me, hello? Building management. Yes, this is so and so from building management. We are very sorry. There was a confusion. Headcase apparently thought you were the internet service provider technician. We informed her that you're a resident and apologize for any possible confusion. Me. Yeah, I tried to tell her that. No worries, nothing happened, just a weird situation, I guess. While I have you on the phone, could you please take down my license plate? I'll move my car to guest parking so she has more space to move. Went down there and had a few giggles as the Headcase was desperately trying to avoid any eye contact and did a stunning job at pretending I wasn't there. To this very day, over 5 years later, she has not once intentionally made eye contact with me or greeted me. My wife and I made a somewhat petty tradition out of this by greeting her, in a comically nice way, every time we meet her in the parking garage. What makes it a million times better is when her husband is with her, who always greets back with a little smirk on his face. He knows. He definitely knows. Story 3. I think this is the most petty I have ever been, and there's no need to ask if I was the jerk because I totally was. But it amused me and a few others. This happened a few weeks back, and it still makes my friends and me laugh whenever we remember it. I do deliveries around our town, and as such, I need fuel to do so. There is one gas station I stop at every morning before work because the gas is the cheapest. It's on my route to work, and it has a better selection of breakfast, snacks, and drinks than the others nearby. Since I've been stopping there at least 3 times a week for the last 6 years, I've gotten to know the owner and a few of the long-time staff members. They're all good people and treat me better than most employees do, so I try to treat them with as much respect as I possibly can. One morning, while I was filling up, one of the female employees, let's call her Rachel, was standing idly by one of the pumps. She has a few mental challenges, but is one of the kindest people I know. So while my gas was being pumped, I struck up a conversation. She told me she wasn't doing so well because she was supposed to take out the trash from the outside bins and put it in the dumpster around the side of the building. The way the building is designed, there's only one way to get to the dumpster, and that path is clearly marked with signs and paint saying, "Do not park here or block the dumpster." I looked over and saw a caravan of about 5 minivans parked around the area. Most were in proper parking spaces, but the largest one with a massive roof rack was parked awkwardly in front of the dumpster, completely blocking it off. I asked Rachel if she had asked them to move, and she said they told her they would move when they were done. That was over 30 minutes ago. Seeing her sad face, I decided to make it up to her. After putting the nozzle back and getting my car ready, I drove over to where the van was parked and pulled into the first open parking spot directly behind it, effectively blocking it in completely. I got out of my car and walked about 5 steps away when a screeching woman, your classic Karen, poked her head out of the van's front window. "Hey, can you move your car? I'm parked here," she yelled. "Oh, but that's not a parking spot," I replied. "Well, yeah, that's why I'm trying to get out of it," she snapped. "Okay, but hold on. I'll just be a minute." I proceeded to walk inside the store to get my breakfast as I heard Karen shouting for me to come back. As the store doors shut behind me, I noticed the place was full of families buying travel snacks. They were all milling about, but a few were looking out the window, saying, "I wonder what she's yelling about." They were clearly all part of her caravan. By the time I grabbed my food and drink and made it to the checkout line, Karen had stormed into the store, demanding that I move my car immediately. I told her, "I can't leave. That would be stealing," meaning I hadn't paid yet, and I was going to buy my stuff and then leave. She huffed and realized that everyone in front of her in line was a member of her group, so she just glared at me the entire time. After about 10 minutes, I finally made it to the front and said, "Oh wait, this isn't what I wanted. I'll go put it back and grab what I really want." Luckily, I was still early for work, so I was milking it for all it was worth. Karen was fuming. When I got back to the line, someone else had stepped in front of me, and Karen tried to tell them to move so I could go first. The owner, let's call her Jess, told Karen she wasn't allowed to talk to customers that way, and one more outburst would get her kicked out of the store. Karen muttered something under her breath, but stayed quiet. I checked out, moving and talking as slowly as possible, and even asked for a lottery ticket. After paying, I scratched it off, and wouldn't you know, I won a free ticket. So I bought another one and started scratching it off too. Up until that point, Karen had been somewhat tolerable, but then she let out this loud, angry screech and told me to stop wasting her time. Jess immediately told her to leave. Karen refused, so Jess picked up her phone and threatened to call the police. Karen quickly left, shouting at her caravan about how they had to wait. I thanked Jess for what she had done so far and explained what was going on, still moving very slowly. She laughed and told me how much she hated when people parked there. They always got defensive when told not to, but this was the first time anyone had ever gotten some well-deserved payback. When I walked outside, Rachel was standing near my vehicle, doing her best not to laugh. I loaded up my car and asked if things were better now, and she nodded enthusiastically. I moved my car to the other side of the lot and watched as they all left one by one, but not before Karen pulled out in front of another driver and almost caused an accident. Story 4. Started when I was in high school, left for college, and came back part-time because the pay isn't bad and the schedule works with my classes. For those who don't know, I work the face-to-face position in the drive-thru. That's the person you see standing outside with a green vest and those 2 money pouches strapped across their chest, taking orders and payments directly at your car window. It's actually not a terrible job most of the time. Yeah, you deal with weather and the occasional rude customer, but it keeps you moving and the shifts go by pretty fast. The money pouches are pretty standard. We carry cash and cards, process payments right there, and keep the line moving quickly. That's kind of the whole point of our restaurant's drive-through system. We're supposed to be fast and efficient. Now, here's the thing about those pouches. There's a safety protocol we're supposed to follow. When you're carrying cash on you like that, especially during busy dinner rushes or late at night, you're not supposed to let it build up too much. The rule has always been that once your pouch starts getting heavy with cash, you radio inside and someone comes out to do a cash drop. They take the excess bills, you keep enough to make change, and everyone stays safe. It makes sense for two big reasons. First, it's legitimately dangerous to be standing outside in a parking lot at night with hundreds of dollars strapped to your body. Second, those pouches can only hold so much before they're literally bursting at the seams. This system worked fine for years. Whenever my pouch got full, I'd radio in, wait maybe 2 minutes for someone to come swap out the cash, and keep going. No big deal. Then Monday happened. Our general manager called a meeting before the dinner shift. She seemed stressed about drive-through times or something. She told us all to listen up and explained that corporate was putting pressure on us about speed of service numbers. Our times were slipping, and she needed to fix it immediately. I asked her what she wanted us to do differently. She said no more cash drops during rush. She explained it was wasting time. She went on about how when we radio in, someone has to stop what they're doing, walk outside, do the exchange, and it's adding 30 seconds to every transaction and killing our times. My coworker asked what we should do if our pouches got full. The general manager said they wouldn't get that full if we were moving fast enough. She told us to just keep the line going and not to request cash drops unless it was an absolute emergency. I exchanged looks with my coworker. This seemed like a bad idea, but she's the general manager and we're just part-timers. What were we going to say? Fast forward to last night. Thursday nights are always busy, and last night was insane. Cars wrapped around the building for hours. And wouldn't you know it, everyone was paying with cash. 20s, 50s, and I kid you not, at least 6 people paid with $100 bills. My pouch was getting so stuffed that I literally started folding bills in half just to make them fit. The thing was bulging. I kept looking at it thinking about radioing for a cash drop, but I remembered what our general manager said. No cash drops. Keep the line moving. Around 8:30, when it was fully dark outside, a black Dodge Charger pulled up to my spot. The window was tinted so dark I couldn't see inside at all. The driver's door opened and a guy got out. That alone was weird. Customers don't usually get out of their cars. He walked around the front of the car toward me. I started to greet him and ask if I could take his order, but he cut me off immediately. He demanded I give him the money right then. His hand was in his jacket pocket, pointed at me like he had something in there. My heart just stopped. I'm not stupid. I immediately unclipped both pouches and handed them over. He grabbed them and got back in his car. The whole thing took maybe 15 seconds. Then he just drove off. I stood there shaking, trying to process what just happened. Another car pulled up and the customer asked if I was okay. That snapped me out of it. I radioed inside that I'd just been robbed and needed someone outside immediately. The shift leader came running out, then called the police and our owner. The police came, took my statement, got the description of the car and the guy. They were professional about it and told me I did the right thing by just handing everything over. But then our owner showed up. The owner was absolutely fuming. Not at the robbery, at me. He asked if I had any idea how much money I just lost him. Over $700. He demanded to know why the hell I had that much cash on me and why I didn't call for a cash drop. I explained that our general manager told us on Monday not to do cash drops anymore because it was slowing down drive-through times. The owner seemed shocked and asked what I meant. I repeated that she said no more cash drops unless it was an absolute emergency. She told us it was wasting time and hurting our speed of service numbers. The owner's face went from red to purple. He immediately went inside, and I could hear him yelling through the headset. Our general manager came outside looking pale. The owner asked her if it was true and whether she really told us to stop doing cash drops. She started to stammer that she just meant to limit them during rush hours, but the owner cut her off. He asked if she realized she just cost him $700 and put his employees in danger. He wanted to know what she was thinking. She didn't really have an answer for that. This morning when I came in for my shift, there was a new printed policy taped up in the break room. Cash drops are now mandatory once your pouch exceeds $300. No exceptions. Zero tolerance. And here's where it gets good. Our general manager has been on my case all day today. She kept coming up to me asking what my drawer count was. I told her it was about 200. 30 minutes later, she asked again what my drawer count was. I said 250. 20 minutes after that, she asked how much cash I had. I told her 300 and that I was about to call for a cash drop. She said good and told me to do that right away. She's been hovering like this all day, obsessively checking everyone's cash counts. Funny how suddenly she cares so much about safety procedures after the restaurant lost $700 and got a massive liability issue dropped in the owner's lap. I'm just glad I didn't get hurt. And watching her squirm all day while the owner keeps giving her dirty looks has been the only silver lining to this whole mess. Story 5. Backstory. I'm a female in my mid-20s, currently quarantining with my dad. My parents got divorced when I was a baby, so my older sister and I spent most of our lives going between houses. I still do. My sister has her own life now. When I was 9, my mom remarried a wonderful guy who has been nothing but kind. My dad dated, but couldn't seem to find the right girl. My junior year in high school, he brought a new girl home for dinner to meet us. Let's call her Gothel, because she's a real witch. First impression, Gothel seemed to be a pleasant human being. She seemed nervous, but made conversation with us and did seem interested in getting to know my sister and I. Dinner goes well, and Dad asks if it would be a good idea to have her around again. We say sure. She continues to stick around. We go shopping, out to lunch, usual girl bonding activities. She takes an interest in who I am and what I like doing. Everyone's happy. Close to the end of my senior year in high school, my dad pulls me aside and tells me that he wants to propose, and he wants to know what I think. I tell him that if he really loves her, and if she makes him happy, then by all means, marry her. He proposes, and she accepts. Everyone is happy for my dad and excited for the wedding, which was held in a beautiful botanic garden, attended by close family members. My sister and myself were the bridesmaids. Almost immediately after the wedding, things begin to go wrong. Suddenly Gothel is rude, angry, and irritable. Nothing we do seems to please her. We had a mini party at our house a couple days after the wedding where most of my dad's and Gothel's friends came to celebrate. I mingled and made small talk with people, but it got to be late in the evening and I was tired and wanted to go to bed. So I went to say goodnight to Dad and Gothel. She got pissed. Apparently me wanting to go to bed was a huge insult, and I could spare a few hours to celebrate their wedding. Lady, what do you think I've been doing this past week? Something I found out later is that she got super drunk and was really mean to the bartender my dad had hired, and my dad had to pay her a lot more money to compensate for the horrible treatment she endured. Thus began a period of 2 years where Gothel would get extremely upset at us. We'd argue, go blow off some steam, come back all apologetic and promise to be better. Everything would be fine for a couple days before it all went to hell again, and these were big arguments. Any slight disagreement would be taken as disrespect. She came down hard on our appearances, our habits, things we liked, criticizing every part of our lives. I began to be relieved when it came time to go to my mom's house since it meant I could escape her. We tried really hard to make it work with her. We did everything we possibly could to make it better. But after several incidents, including a disastrous 4th of July and sending me a string of verbally abusive text messages, my dad kicked her out and decided to divorce her. Sorry for the long backstory. Now we finally get to some karma. Knowing that Gothel would try to screw my dad over in the divorce proceedings, my dad got a good lawyer and began allocating his funds strategically so she would get less in the settlement that she would get otherwise. Just to be petty, she dragged her feet and made the proceedings take longer. Court dates got pushed back because she didn't show up. Suddenly, Gothel's father died, and they reached a settlement much more quickly after that. My dad went to the funeral, which definitely endeared him to the family more. But the final revenge, and the reason I'm writing this post, happened just a few days ago. Remember how I said Gothel was verbally abusive? Well, she didn't just attack me and my dad. She messaged a lot of people. My sister, my aunts and uncles, my grandparents, pretty much everyone she'd met in our family. She would directly message them and put up long rants on social media about how awful we were. She did it throughout the entirety of the divorce proceedings and after. Fast forward to 3 days ago. My dad comes home with a big grin on his face, saying, "I've got something you need to see." He shows me a letter written by the CEO of the company that Gothel works for, letting his suppliers and business partners know that Gothel has been let go as the Midwest Regional Sales Director for the company for online slander of not just the company, but of her coworkers, superiors, and the CEO himself. If they are to receive any contact from Gothel, they should ignore it and contact the CEO immediately. Gothel has worked for this company and in her industry for decades. It's pretty much the only thing she knows how to do. By attacking her company online, she's committed professional suicide and ensured that she will most likely never get a job in her field ever again. So long, Gothel. Karma is a witch, and so are you. Story 6. Alright, this occurred years ago and is somewhat of a long one. I grew up in a bit of a strict state, and the town I lived in was pretty into everyone's business. Please remember this detail a bit later since it's going to play a very vital role in my story. When I moved to the house I grew up in, we had neighbors who lived in a house right next to our backyard, but technically on a different street. This fact will also play a vital role. For this story, we're going to call the neighbors the Murrays. The Murrays seemed nice when we first met. I played with their daughter since she was close to a year younger than me, and their son who was 5 years older than me, and their dad became friendly with my dad since it was an extra hand to help with major construction projects. We were friendly enough that when we wouldn't play in my backyard, we'd let the children and their friends or family play there. However, as the years went on, we started to see their true colors. Anytime I would get a major item like a guitar or a dune buggy, even getting a major role in the school play, their daughter would try to copy me, such as getting a dirt bike or a guitar and join the drama club, only to quit when seeing how much work was in it. The dad would borrow my dad's woodworking tools and never return them. The mother had a few screws loose, and I remember bringing an art kit over only for it to be banned since it made a mess. The brother probably was the only decent one in the family, but had some of his own issues. That's a different story. And they developed a hatred for my mother when they discovered her religious heritage. They were friends also with a girl who was very into Hitler's regime, so you can catch my drift on where this is going. Now here's where the revenge story comes in. I was in my backyard driving my dune buggy and just refreshing some dirt tracks for the spring. I was about 12 at the time, and as I was driving my dune buggy, I noticed a party going on at my neighbor's house. It turned out to be their daughter's 12th birthday party. I remember we gave her a gift to celebrate it, but I wasn't invited. I told my parents, and they were pissed. Mainly because we bought her a nice gift for her birthday, and the fact that her family didn't have the decency to invite me made my family livid, especially my dad. My parents confronted the Murrays, who apologized and bought me a birthday gift to make up for it since my birthday was in the same month as their daughter's. A few weeks after that occurred, Mrs. Murray had trees put up around the border of our properties so they could have their privacy but still use our land. My dad was furious. One thing about my dad needs to be made clear here, everyone. He's a two-tour combat war veteran with severe PTSD. And when you anger my father to a certain extent, that anger will stay for decades. Since both my parents were sick of their treatment on us, my parents hired a local contractor and had them create a fence to completely fence off our properties. Not even a single door to allow them in our backyard. The Murrays were enraged we did this since it wasn't on Mrs. Murray's terms of privacy and cut their friendship with us. Well, remember when I said I grew up in a town who had their nose in everyone's business? A few days after this, an official from my town paid us a visit and told us they had a report of an illegal fence being made onto our property without proper documentation. My dad knew immediately who called and, in the fashion of my dad, showed the official paperwork, which was not only 10 years old, but had one major loophole: it never had an expiration date. Because of this, the town official couldn't argue with this and approved there wasn't an issue with the fence. However, right before he left, Dad gave the official a tip on the Murrays, since it was them who called on us. Mr. Murray even confirmed he called the town on us weeks later. The tip: the Murrays has a small above-ground pool. One of those crappy, build-your-own above-grounds pools you can buy at your local warehouse store or wherever. Now, as heavily stated, my town had a lot of regulations in order to live there, and if you didn't follow them, they'd be all over you like a bee on sugar until it met the town standards. My dad always found a way to get what he wanted, and it turns out the Murrays had hedges surrounding the area where their pool was, and Dad tipped the official off that it was actually against town regulations. Lo and behold, Dad was right. Town was all over the Murrays afterwards and told them to either spend the money to get a proper fence within a month or tear the pool down. The Murrays were forced to tear their pool down, their only source of outdoor entertainment. Since then, Mr. Murray made up with my dad, but it didn't last long at all. We moved away from that neighborhood 3 years ago and mainly get along with our current neighbors. Last I heard of the Murrays, they stopped talking to Mrs. Murray's sister and her family, who we were also friendly with. The daughter became a prostitute and the son lives with his boyfriend and is an alcoholic. Edit. After I told my dad about posting this story, he openly admitted he forced the Murrays to have the trees they planted to be dug up and moved farther back since the fence was going on the property line. One of the subjects my dad studied in college was horticulture, and since the trees couldn't get direct sunlight, the trees died. Basically, this is my dad for you. Edit. My dad also recently revealed to me that those trees they placed were technically on our end of the property line. I wasn't aware of this at the time, and he told me years later. If I recall correctly, since they technically built on our property without our permission, the trees were illegal. My dad wanted the fence on that spot, and it was technically our land right there, so that's why he made the Murrays move their trees.